Hey everybody, I'm going to want you to get your helmet on, put your mouthpiece in. We've got a program for you today that's going to blow your mind. It's definitely engaging, definitely powerful, because with us today we have the great, the one and only Heidi St. John.
Real Life presents the Jack Hibbs podcast with intention and boldness to proclaim truth, equip the saints, and impact our culture. Today, if this podcast lifts you up and encourages you to live a more fulfilled life in Christ, then make sure you leave us one of those 5-star ratings. To us, that's like saying amen or yes. Then that rating will encourage others to listen. Now open your hearts to what God's Word has to say to you. Here is Jack Hibbs.
Well, hey, you guys, welcome to our podcast, and we've got a special one today. And I know I probably sound like I'm saying that all the time when we have a special one today, but I can't tell you just how much that is true. We have with us a woman that I called years ago, Deborah. She's Deborah in the 21st century. You're going to see how true that is in a moment. But Heidi St. John is waging a war on more fronts than nations. She is not only a culture truth warrior, loves God, loves Jesus, loves the truth, will not sit back and tolerate what is happening to our nation and our children. So we're going to try to cover as much topic as we possibly can in this podcast together. But I want every one of you to make sure that you click, subscribe, like us, spread the word, because you're going to see why in a moment. So with us, we have the amazing, unstoppable Heidi St. John. So I am not even going to get into Heidi St. John, can you tell everybody all of the things that you're involved in? Because I can't keep up with your .coms. I can't keep up with your board memberships and where you're at, things that you're involved in. Please introduce yourself to our group.
Well, I think the thing I always like to tell people, the thing that I'm most passionate about, I always talk about first. My husband and I are coming up on 35 years of marriage, and we have 7 children and 4 grandkids. And that is the thing that it's the engine, in my car, and my love for Jesus. But outside of that, I love this country. I'm a patriot. My grandparents taught me to love this country, and so it's motivated me to kind of take a deep dive into what's happening to our nation. And I noticed about 20 years ago that there was root rot in the public school system. And so we pulled our daughter out of public school when she was in 2nd grade, and we began to do this crazy thing called homeschooling, which I said I would never do.
We did the same.
Yeah, because what woman in her right mind would have her kid home? I know.
I remember in the 80s when Lisa said, we're going to homeschool, and I'm thinking, are we going to go to jail? In California.
In the 80s, you might have gone to jail, right?
Yeah, it was definitely.
Absolutely true. Had it not been for our friend Mike Ferris.
That's right.
And the founding of the
Love
HSLDA, which is one thing I do. I sit on the board of that organization. Incredible group of people that have secured the homeschool freedom.
Homeschool Legal Defense Fund, yes?
Yes, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. HSLDA.org. I've written, I think, 9 books. I can't remember. I have another one coming out from Tyndale.
Tell us about it.
It's called Mom Strong 365, Everyday Truths for Everyday Moms. And it's a 365-day devotional for moms to kind of point them back to what really matters. The world has reduced motherhood to a stopover on the highway of life, but God sees it as a much greater purpose. It's a kingdom purpose. Mothering has a kingdom purpose. So I spent a lot of time writing about homeschooling. In 2017, I released a book called Becoming Mom Strong, How to Fight with All That's in You for Your Family and Your Faith. And it was kind of my story of coming from a place of brokenness and finding the healing of God and seeing God do an amazing, miraculous thing in my life. So that might be probably one of my favorite books. I ran for Congress, as you know, a couple years ago. Which we can get
from
into.
Southern California, we went with that through, watched you, prayed for you, connected with you, and you learned something, huh?
Yeah. Well,
you learned something about not only the political machine, but you learned something about it's not all that it's perceived.
No, it is not. Well, I think my biggest takeaway is there is evil in the Republican Party, just as there is evil in the Democrat Party, and we need to look for the good. We need to find people of character to run.
Can I suggest that there might even be career Democrats who paraded for decades as Republicans as actual covert operations to get elected?
Absolutely true.
We've seen it in SoCal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's absolutely in Washington State as well. And so we've got to be willing to do our homework on these candidates anymore. You can't look to see an organization that gives an endorsement, right?
Yeah, right
Endorsements to my way of thinking don't mean much anymore. And also Jay and I are the founders and executive directors of the Friendly Planet Homeschool Resource Center, which just got gifted a $16 million building right in the heart of Vancouver.
I saw this. Gifted.
So,
Ladies
gifted.
and gentlemen, gifted.
Yeah.
God is so blessing their efforts that I saw this facility. It's incredibly beautiful, but $16+ million gifted for a specific reason. This is what happens, you guys, when you step out to follow God's interest. God will provide what he cares about. People are concerned, I don't know if we'll have the money for that. Well, you ought to ask yourself first, is it going to glorify God? Or is this your crazy idea? In this case, what they stand for is protecting, educating, and equipping kids, that there were those who, I'll just say out of ignorance, they were power brokers or they had resources that believe in your vision. And through God's hand, they wound up saying, hey, we believe what you're doing and we want to give this to you.
Yeah.
And it's because you have got your eye focused on the prize, and so God comes alongside and brings everything else so that you can keep the focus.
Yeah, and I think it's a wonderful encouragement to everyone who's listening, because we want to do what God's doing, right? That was Henry Blackaby a long time ago, experiencing God sort of changed my life.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, let's look and see what God's doing and join him.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out, God, what are you doing? And I think God's heart right now is centered on children. We know that God cares about our children, and they are being injured. Body, soul, mind, and spirit by the public school system, the spirit of the age, absolutely alive and well in the public school system. And so 7 years ago, we opened a full-time homeschool resource center, another building that was given to us, smaller, a 20,000 square foot facility. And last year, we served over 1,600 students there. And so we're getting ready to launch at our new facility in September. It opens. We have 230 classes already slated for the fall. So we're teaching the Constitution, Jack. There's a kicker.
I think you should start first by teaching Congress the Constitution.
Yeah, there's an idea. Yeah.
Charlie Kirk, we had I love him. We're friends, but in one of our discussions, he was going on about how this is going to happen, and I think this, and I said, Charlie, I don't think so. He said, what do you mean? I said, Charlie, you're assuming that there's a Constitution that's being upheld.
Yes.
And he said, don't say that. But that's been about 4 years ago. We had that conversation.
Well, now we're seeing blatant abuse of the Constitution.
I mean, it's overwhelmingly true.
Overwhelmingly true.
Can you walk us through real quick before we go on to anything else? What is the day in the life of this homeschool network? What does it do?
Well, it's first, people need to know it's not a drop off. We are very convicted that parents need to be in the driver's seat of their children's education. And so this is true even in a private Christian school. What happens is parents go, I'm going to give my kid. Yes, come on.
Deuteronomy.
Yes, this is right. When you rise up and when you sit down, when you walk along the road, he doesn't say drop your kids off and come back and get them at 4, right?
Yeah.
And so we require parents to be on campus unless they have a high school student that is taking a series of classes, and the parents don't need to be there for the whole thing. But as for the most part.
That's right on.
And it's open 5 days a week. Everything we do there is a la carte. So we don't have a program. We invite Christian teachers in the area to come in and submit class ideas. They need to be able to sign a statement of faith. We want to know who these people are. Do they love the Lord Jesus? That's the first thing that we look for in a good teacher. And then after that, we are putting parents again back in the driver's seat of their kids' education. And we want to find out what is the unique gifting and passion that God has given these children, because they come to us hardwired with a purpose.
That's right.
And so we basically give 100%. Them a menu and they can choose. So a lot of these kids, we've had kids as young as 10 years old really show an aptitude for engineering. And so, for example, we're exposing them to engineering. We have an aviation program. We've got, we're bringing back the trades again. We have a wonderful dance program. We are teaching, we have the whole theology department, all kinds of gifting that we are seeing the Lord use. In fact, I was giving a tour of the new building just a couple days ago, and a gentleman who serves on the elder board of a local church came to see it, and he said, man, I've got my master's degree in criminology. I'd love to come and teach introduction to criminology. And so he's going to come and do that in the spring. And we're watching the Lord just bring these gifted people. And so a mom can come in off the street and she can say, oh my goodness, I just found out that the Ridgefield School District is teaching our kids that there's 400 genders and they could be a narwhal whale by Friday if they want to be.
Just like California's Department of Education is doing in every county in the state.
100%. It's so sad. But the neat thing about the Homeschool Resource Center, and our plan is to get these in cities across the United States because it works. It's working. She can come in, we can help her figure out how to first withdraw your child from the school.
Yes.
And then we sit down and just talk to her about her kids. We want to meet your kids. Let's talk to your kids. What do you guys like? What's your passion? And so make sure that she's got the help that she needs to homeschool her kids. We're not there to do it for you.
Right.
We're there to come alongside you.
Lift their hands up.
Yes, exactly.
So explain to people that they're at a point now, they've been at a point ever since COVID, so many people, including a lot of non-believers who watch this podcast, they've had enough. They're not even Christians, but they figured out this all stinks.
Yeah, it does.
And they learned during COVID, as they overheard the online class, say what? Yeah. That now they're looking for alternative education. They can't find it. And they're changing lifestyle to accommodate homeschooling. Having said that, walk me through a day at your school. You said mom shows up. How long is mom and child there that day? Do they have shifts? Is it
people come and go? People come and go throughout the whole day, and so we open at 9 and we close at 5. But people are coming and going all day long because all these classes are a la carte. So there is a coffee shop there. There's a bookstore there. Moms can come and get a cup of coffee, and their kids are going to run down and they're going to take a U.S. history class or whatever it is. And so she might come on a Tuesday morning, let's say, and she's got 4 kids, and she's got them in classes from maybe 11 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. So she might be there that day from 11 to 3, and then we won't see her again, maybe for the whole week, or maybe she'll come back on Thursday for other classes. It really is you choose your own adventure at the Homeschool Resource Center. Our job is to support you.
You know what's awesome about what you just said is that back in the 80s, when Lisa was, at least in our family and both sides of our family, pioneering this idea for our homeschooling, the immediate cry, and it's like pull the string.
Yep.
And it's this, pull the string, but what about their
socialization? I hate that. Yeah. Actually, I love it. I
do too.
I love it. I always tell people, I'm so glad you asked. That's why we pulled our kids out of public school.
That's exactly the reason why. Guess what? We have no metal detectors at our home. We don't have condom dispensers at our home. Yep. We don't have kids being violated, mutilated, and mentally, raped by all of the agenda. And here's the thing. There are, as you well know, as Scripture says, a 3-cord rope is not easily broken. Mm-hmm. 2, yeah. 3, no. Why? That is so true in just technology. It's so true in what we're talking about, because if you have a strong church working with you, or you have a strong education system for your kids, right? And if you have strong fellowship or friends, that triune network of relationship, the world cannot compete with. So someone in the public school system is going to say, "Oh, Heidi, I can't believe you just said that. They don't go back to school for like 4 more days later to your group." You have to remember something. What a kid gets in the proper homeschool setting, like Heidi's describing, blows the traditional concept of you got to come in at 8, you got to sit through all this garbage and all this trash, and Bobby, sit down, stop pulling her hair. All that stuff is gone. And in 4 or 5 hours, 2 times a week, the kid is more schooled. Look, I'm going to say something radical, and you're going to say, "No way." And I'm going to say, "Go find out." A kid that is exposed to 8 hours in 5 days of giving assignments, that doesn't mean that's 8 hours and that's it. 8 hours of interface with teacher and learning, and then they've got their homework, and they're doing it, and they're working on projects. They're going in the backyard, overturning rocks and looking at types of bugs, doing their science, hands-on. That when you talk to me about a kid having to be 5 days a week, and now they keep shortening the summer breaks and putting them in for longer, 5 days younger, 5 days a week. Listen, our kids, according to California statistics, the longer a child is in the California school system, the dumber they get. Did you know that? They start really well. When they come from home and they go to 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, they do great. The longer they're in, they get dumber. And that is a fact. You can research that. But thank God something's being done. And we know that what's being done, by the way, is something at least our governor, and I think our governor somehow is related to your governor.
I'm sure. Yeah,
I
I'm
think
sure.
in the bozo realm.
Yeah, or the cousin realm. They could be cousins. I mean, they could be related. Intermarriage. Something's going on.
Yeah, anyway, they think the same way.
Yes, they do.
They have the same policies.
Yeah.
The point is this. Newsom is just like a wolf dripping the fangs. He's drooling to crush
Inslee
and
is the
stop
same,
homeschooling in California because it's the last bastion of safety for the kids. And it just drives them crazy.
Well, and they know that homeschooling, again, is returning parents to their rightful place in the home.
Parental authority.
That's right. And that will be the new battlefront. For the next coming years, I think we're going to see an even greater assault on parental rights. We've been watching this again. Mike Ferris saw this years ago when he founded parentalrights.org, but they've been around for 15 years, probably at least. And we've got to pay attention. The reason the government hates homeschooling is because homeschooling is a freedom movement. Homeschooling is a love your kids movement first. And it's a freedom movement. It's allowing our kids to learn in freedom. It's allowing them to learn about freedom. It's allowing them to think freely. The government doesn't want our kids to think
critical
freely.
Thinking.
Critical
Used to be
thinking.
called critical thinking.
Yes, not anymore, right? So we know now that our kids are being injured. And like you and I were talking about last night, I said in Washington State when I ran for Congress, I declared a state of emergency over what is happening to our children. And they are coming out of our schools and they are injured. And they're injured. They cannot think critically for themselves. And we saw this absolutely front and center in COVID. In fact, when Jay and I flew down here yesterday, I noted that most of the people wearing masks in the airport are young people.
Absolutely.
They're young people
Absolutely
who have been
true.
scared out of their wits, right? And they've been indoctrinated to
mortified.
believe that whatever the CDC says, right now the CDC is coming out and saying that men can breastfeed, which is such a sick and twisted and perverted
Gosh, if that's true,
thing.
my kid's going to starve to death.
Can you imagine what's happening? We're poisoning our children in the name of promoting transgenderism. We're poisoning little babies. This stuff is being taught to little children in the public schools. Parents need to get their kids out of these schools.
Okay, help me out here because I have ADD. So you just said something and my mind just jumped 5 tracks over.
I do that too. We'll get along fine.
So, and then we have to come back to what topic we're on here. Why would a parent, with all that has been revealed in the news, available now to know what's happening, the agenda of the public school system is no longer education. I'm not being a conspiracy person. It's clear that it's indoctrination.
Oh, absolutely clear.
100% clear.
Yeah.
With all that's going on, how in the world can parents today think or believe that they can drop their kid off at school? Now, it used to be if you didn't know, you didn't know, but now everybody knows. Mm-hmm. What are we doing? Are we saying as a culture, Heidi, that, look, either A, I don't care what my kid learns in public school, I need the kid out of the way because I got to go do my career. I hope that's not the case, but is it, well, I'm trying to put bread on the table and food on the table. Maybe it's a single mom or a single dad, and it's a tough life. Knowing what you know, the money issue evaporates because if we love our kids, we're going to be sacrificial for our children. I don't need the Porsche. I don't have to have the sailboat. In light of my child, the raping of my child's mind. Mm-hmm. We must, as a culture, have an epic shift in our values now, not later, now, or else it's not going to work.
Well, the churches have got to be more involved than they have been.
The what?
Right, exactly. And I mean, this is a failure of the church on so many levels. 25 years ago, when we started talking about what was happening in the public schools, we started planting homeschool cooperatives. So that was the first iteration of the Homeschool Resource Center. So my husband and I planted over 100 homeschool cooperatives all across the United States. We did a couple of them in Canada. We planted one at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany. And we went to probably 1,000 churches to find 100 who would say education is important. What we heard over and over again was, well, we have tithing members of our church who are actively involved in the public school system. And we were so frustrated by this that because we realized this is a failure on the part of the church to understand the role of parents and to understand the importance of education. Education's not neutral. We for a long time have thought, education, that's just reading, writing, and arithmetic, except for Jesus said when a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. So then it begs the question, what are these teachers like? Who are these teachers? Well, the reality is is, we don't know.
That's right.
And we haven't known. And now we're looking at the agenda of the National Educators Association, which it's horrific. And the NEA is who sets the tone for the entire public school system, just like the National Library Association sets the agenda for all of our public libraries, which are also corrupt and wicked institutions. Yeah. And so if that's true, and if Jesus said that the parents are supposed to be in charge of our children's education, then certainly from our pulpits, constantly, over and over and over again, a pastor should be telling parents, pay attention to what's happening in the schools. Get your children out. We learned something in COVID. We learned that if there was a virus with a 99.9% survival rate, we would shutter our schools and take the kids out.
Unbelievable.
And I'm telling parents, there is a virus with a 99.9% spiritual mortality rate in our schools. Get your children out of these systems of education. And the pastors need to step up to the plate.
You know what's amazing? I do not believe, this is my personal belief, I do not believe that God invented COVID and attacked the world with it, okay? I believe that COVID was engineered. I think the evidence is overwhelming, and it was an attack. Having said that, God used COVID
Absolutely.
To expose things.
Yes.
God was so kind during COVID that he was saying, hey, everybody, look.
Pay attention.
Look, number one, look how stupid your government is.
Yeah.
Number two, what about you? What are you going to do with your kids? What are you going to do with your family? Hey, what are you going to do with your freedom? And three, who are you going to listen to? So all of a sudden, the foundations of the, I'll say secular world, even though it's a God thing, science. Science is a God thing. God invented science. Science, according to definition, is what you can observe and repeat, test, and see. Mm-hmm. This is science. When they said follow the science.
Trust the science.
Trust the science. People who are emotional went, okay. And what happened was, exactly what you said a moment ago, they stopped believing science, because God's fingerprint's all over science. They listen to a narrative. They listen to a lie, frankly. And so today, like you said, you got people walking around predominantly young that, and you can handle this a few ways. You could look at them and say, what a dummy. Do they not know that a mask cannot stop a virus? I want to go up and tell them. But the second thing is probably more of the reality is they must be afraid to die. Yep. If they're afraid to die, they need Jesus. So I've told our church, and maybe it's a good time for me to say it on this podcast, if you see somebody wearing a mask, that is an open door to go evangelize them with the gospel of Christ, because they're terrified. But it is so sad because kids today announce that they're so much smarter than we are, but they're really not. They've got a Wikipedia worldview, a Wikipedia understanding, which is veneer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you're fighting all that by having these kids be taught what matters, how the world really works. And what I love about what you're saying is for a kid, can you imagine, when was the last time a kid was told by their parent, if you hear something that you don't understand, or if you hear something odd in class, raise your hand and ask the teacher, why is that true? What did you say? You just said this? How is that true? Kids in school are told to sit down, shut up, and obey.
And we see it. When kids come to the resource center from the public school system, they're very quiet, or they're just afraid of something new. But what we've seen over the last 7 years, absolutely true. And what we've seen over the years, I had a mom come to me just a couple weeks ago, and she said, thank you. She's crying. Thank you for the Homeschool Resource Center. I finally have my daughter back.
Wow.
I haven't seen her in years, right? Because we're offshoring our parenting. And not only are we offshoring it, we're offshoring it to a wicked nation. I mean, we can look at it that way. There's lots of ways to look at it. But what we're trying to help these kids do is discover who they are, because God made them special. You remember the VeggieTales, God made you special and he loves you very much. Yeah. We want the kids to know that when they come to the Homeschool Resource Center. And so for that reason, we interview the kids. Each one of them gets an interview. We find out, what are you interested in? What's your passion? And the teachers that come in, so students are picking these classes. We're not giving them to them. So now you have an engaged room of 12 students and they're learning about something that they want.
Exceed.
Yes. And that is what we're seeing happening. Yes. And so I'm not interested in a teaching credential for the teachers that come to teach at the Homeschool Resource Center. We're interested in experience and passion. Do you know Jesus? Do you have experience in the subject you want to teach, and are you passionate about it? Do you love these kids like Jesus does? And boy, I'll tell you what, that recipe is producing incredible results. Yeah.
Somebody might say, Heidi, that's so reckless because I'm a teacher and I have my degree in whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, really?
That was the big lie that I believed, though.
Of course.
Every homeschool mom who doesn't have a teaching certificate
she's a
feels like
What
she
does she
can't
know?
do it. And when I taught our now 30-year-old daughter to read when she was 4 years old, I remember my husband coming home from work one day and I just said, they lied to me. He said, what do you mean? I said, my whole life they've been telling me I can't teach my own child to read because I don't have a degree from Oregon State University that makes me a teacher. And as it turned out, I found a book called Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And in 100 Easy Lessons, that girl was off to the races. And she was reading, and I taught her to read. And it opened my eyes to say, oh my goodness, I can do this. And I think moms need to know that. You can do it. God will help you do it, and it will be far better than anything the public school can offer.
Public school can't even come close.
No.
And now we're at that timeline on this evolution of public school education and equipping modern day public school teachers that they don't even know what it is that they are teaching. They are parrots.
Oh, yes.
They're not parenting. They're parroting. Squawk. They just repeat. They're saying this. Where'd you get that from? I got it from Berkeley. I got it from UCLA. I have my degree in education.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I don't know. I have my degree in education.
Yep.
So they just spill it on to the kids. And God forbid if the kid says, ask a question, it completely stumps them. They're robotic. Modern day teachers have by and large become robotic. So, but you bring now what we call, by the way, we do here on campus an after-school detox program. We call it detox.
Oh, nice. That's a good word. It's appropriate.
Where kids who are not homeschooled can come here after school, and they're detoxed. We walk them through the real history or the real math or the real whatever. The point is that those people who say, Heidi, you're crazy and you know that should not happen. Both of you guys are nuts. They have been swimming in a little tiny pool all their lives, and they've been conditioned, and then so they come out and they condition others. They can only take the students as far as they've gone. And we're graduating people from universities who haven't gone very far.
Yep.
So,
and a high school in Oregon right now, you don't have to be proficient in reading, writing, or math to graduate from an Oregon high school.
What kind of a parent approves of that?
Right.
No parent approves of that.
No, and I think parents feel stuck. And I want parents to know you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be stuck. God is raising up a generation of men and women who are at the front lines of this thing. And we are here to say, listen, God loves your kids. He cares about your kids. Take them out of these schools. Take them out, and you can do it. And when you find that community, when you realize, oh my goodness, there are other people who can help me and you're not alone anymore. I do think the community aspect of homeschooling is very important. It's a huge part of what we do at the Resource Center. But parents need to know that, because I talked to a mom, I don't know where I was, Tennessee, a couple of weeks ago talking about this. And she said she didn't recognize her children anymore after 8 years in the public school. And I said, well, you're sending your kid to Rome, basically, right? 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year, and then you're surprised when they come out as Romans, right? We shouldn't be surprised. When a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. Parents need to have a paradigm shift. I was in Alaska maybe 2 months ago speaking to parents there, and in Alaska, the government programs have taken over homeschooling. So in other words, they'll give you a $4,000 stipend per child. It might even be more than that if you will do the government's version of homeschooling. And I was telling them, stop taking part in these government, with shekels come shackles. Do not take the government's money. You don't need it. You can do this on your own. I heard over and over and over again, well, we have to have, X amount of dollars to support our family. And by the way, when we take this $4,000 from the government, my kid can be in equestrian class. We can do violin lessons. And I finally started saying, does your child really need a violin lesson that badly? We need to do a heart check as parents. We want to give our kids all
Great
of these
point.
things, but we're not giving them what they really need. And that is a proper understanding of the word and a proper understanding of the world and their role in it. And if we can get that right, then we might have a chance in the United States. Just to start, we got to start with education. That's where it starts.
That's so powerful. That's a great, great picture because, well, they're learning violin. Okay, but with the violin comes wokeism,
Yes.
socialism, all this gender and racism, everything it's almost like an airplane that's been fueled. We got fuel. We got fuel.
And it's socialism
and there's
also.
no wings on the plane.
Why are we taking money from the government that we have not earned and do not deserve? And when we become dependent on the government, right? And so they stick that bottle in your mouth, and now all of a sudden you're getting $4,000 per child, and you've put you're sending your kids to field trips, you're doing all kinds of $4,000. I mean, Jack, I have 7 children.
Yeah.
$4,000 times 7 is an awful lot of money coming in from the government. They don't need the money, and yet the government is bribing them with it.
Somebody might be saying, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. This is too much information. I don't think I can do it. We learned early on, and back in our day, there were very few helps. But homeschooling legal defense was there for us.
Yes.
They helped us. They file with you the affidavit. You
Yes.
get legal. You're all good. You're not breaking the law. You're all in there. But here's the thing that we learned really quickly was, and you said it right at the get-go, is find out what your kid's interested in. Mm-hmm. Just the definition of the word class is a bad thing. Class. You pile people into a room.
Yep.
And these are 40 individuals, completely wired different, built by God, which is not recognized or honored in the public school system, with a particular bent.
Yep.
That's what the Bible says. Train up a child in the way that they should go. That presupposes that you discover
The way.
the way.
Yes.
So in our home, in your home, in every home, you've got a kid who is, you mentioned an engineer, has an engineering mind. Mm-hmm. Then you've got another kid, which is amazing. Another fingerprint of God is that these two kids came from the same place, from the same parents.
That's right.
How could they be so different? Because
Variation
God,
on a beam. Yes.
It's God. It's God. And so this one loves tinkering with engineering stuff. You say, how do I know? When he was 3 years old, he loved to take things apart.
Yep.
Don't think your kid's being a brat. Every time I walk into the bathroom, my kid took the blow dryer apart. You've got an engineer on your hands.
That's right.
But then you walk into the other room with your kid, and this one has got drawings all over the room. And you're asking, what is that? And they'll tell you, and let them do this. Let them do it.
Yes.
Oh, this is an airplane that I'm making for the future, and it's going to be this way, and this goes that. Let them develop that. Let them tell you the story. Let them draw it. Don't say, well, that's dumb. That'll never happen. Let them go. I'm serious. Let them, give them things as basically, look, there's a lot of psychological studies on this part. You set an infant down and you give them various toys.
Yep.
And
They'll gravitate.
to various toys. Not all of them. They'll gravitate to some
And
of them.
think how opposite to that the schools are, because it's institutionalized learning. Yeah, it's and it's hurting our kids. I mean, if you took out the gender indoctrination, which is horrific, and the pronoun use in my little town of Battleground, Washington, right now where I live. At last count in Battleground, I was raised in a town called Boring, and now I live in Battleground. It's not lost on me.
You were born in Boring?
Yes. Well, I was born in Portland, raised in Boring.
Is there a difference? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, Portland's anything but boring.
This is true.
And now I live in Battleground. Yeah, wow. You knew that was going to happen, right? So it's not lost on me that the Lord took me from Boring to Battleground. But that
is so great.
Yeah, in Battleground, Washington right now, there are at least 4 boys with passes to access the girls' locker rooms.
Okay.
Tell me that's not demonic. Tell me that's not satanic. We're injuring our children. And I want parents to know this is happening to your children. This is happening. And we can't turn a blind eye to it. And God will hold us responsible for what we allow to come into the lives of our children. And parents need to take it seriously. This isn't a game. These children are coming, and what the public school starts, our secular universities finish. So you get your kid out of a public high school. Let's say by the grace of God, they survive it and they have their emotions intact. And then you send them to a public university and you get indoctrination to the nth degree there. And then they come out as a raging leftist.
Yeah.
Well, that you can lay a lot of the blame at the feet of parents
No doubt about
who
it.
need to take responsibility for
By
the
the way,
education of their kids.
I'll go, and I know you agree on this. I will go even further. You can blame the parents, absolutely. But I believe that it is the job, the calling, the purpose of the local church
Yes.
to give those parents everything they need to raise up a godly home.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the answer to everything. Someone's going to say, well, that's so self-serving. Not really. I believe that the church is literally the epicenter for either total disaster or absolute recovery.
Where does judgment begin?
At the house of the Lord.
That's right.
And so, for example, I have a neighbor who's left, and on her front lawn it says there's a sign, and it has a silhouette of a church and the silhouette of the Capitol, and it has a line between the two.
This is your neighbor.
Yeah, of course.
The separation of church and state.
That's the way God works.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome.
Excellent.
And what's funny is we both take care of each other. We take each other's trash cans in and out when appropriate. We help each other's animals when time of need.
As it should be.
But look, the thing is separation of church and state. And it's such a hilarious thing because I guess you could say that in Germany. You could say that in Holland. You could say that in Australia. There's one country on earth you can't say that. I mean, you can say it. It's just not true.
It's just not true.
And that's the United States.
That's right. Yes, this misunderstanding of a
First
letter
Amendment.
that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Church, which the left has had a field day with now for generations.
It's hilarious, 'cause
Separation of church and state. He was saying the opposite.
Completely the opposite.
And yet the
Who's
left
read
has
it?
hijacked it. The
And
left
here's the
hijacked
thing.
it.
You think anybody at CNN has read that letter from Thomas Jefferson? Nope. First Amendment. People will say separation of church and state. Where's that at? We actually did this. We actually had a tour in Washington, D.C., and we visited the various national monuments, the Library of Congress, the National Archives, and the Constitution's there. The Declaration of Independence is there. It's on display.
It's amazing, actually.
And so we had someone go up. They were a high schooler, and they asked the park ranger, hey, where can I find the separation of church and state statement? And the guy said, come with me. He walks over to the First Amendment, and he goes, it's right here. And the guy starts to walk away. Then the park ranger starts to walk away. I watched this. It's kind of a setup. Poor park ranger. The kid reads it, and then he goes over and he goes, I'm sorry, I can't find it. He goes, it's in the First Amendment. So they go over, and he has the park ranger read it, and the park ranger reads it, and he's silent, and he's blank.
Yeah.
It's not there.
No.
It's not there, and he was shocked. People think it's there. If you're going to think anything at all, you said it correct. The exact opposite is there.
The exact opposite is there.
Government cannot listen.
Yes.
We came from a kingdom. Our founding fathers left a kingdom that mandated a state church, and that Danbury Convention of Baptists said, "Hey, Tom, remember we know you.
Yeah.
You know us.
You're holding to this, right?
You are now president.
Yep.
We want to remind you, do not establish a state religion."
Yep.
And he said, I guarantee you, I won't do that. There's going to be a separate, the government will not encroach upon your freedom of worship, and we will not mandate a state church. It's exactly what we believe in.
It is. Absolutely true. And yet we've watched that message be maligned and twisted and used against Christians now. And when we don't have the education about our Constitution, when we don't understand the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson said we needed to teach the rising generation about the founding of our nation so that we would not forget, because they knew we would be prone to going right back into tyranny, which is where we are rapidly heading. And so I think, you and I both, we know Rick Green is a dear friend of mine. Yes. And so we taught his classes actually last
Fantastic
year
course.
during my run for Congress. He came up and we toured we toured Congressional District 3. And I spent less time talking about my run for Congress and more time talking about the Constitution, because people don't understand the Constitution of the United States, which is the highest law in the land, which is how they allowed the government to abuse us so badly in COVID. It's why you saw President Biden, who knew full well he did not have the right via the Constitution to do debt forgiveness for all these students, right? Plunging us more and more and more into debt than we already are. The Supreme Court obviously came around and said, actually, the Constitution doesn't give you that power. Only Congress can do that. Biden knew that, and he purposely bypassed Congress. So now we have people in the highest positions of authority in our land who are absolutely going against the Constitution. And if the American people don't understand that, we're in trouble.
They don't understand it. Mm-hmm. They don't. We are in trouble. You talked about God's going to hold us accountable. That is true in the end. Yes. I believe he's holding us accountable now.
Yeah.
Right now, today. This is not, I'll deal with that later. No, you're dealing with it now, in your culture, in your life, in your family, with your kids. Unless we speak up now, it's lost. I like to put it this way, because for me, it's so graphic, where there are people who are saying things like, I saw what happened up in Mariposa County, or I saw what happened in San Francisco. Whew, it's sure a good thing that, I'm down here in Southern California. It's a little bit more conservative down here. Hey, the cancer spreads.
Yes.
And it has already spread. What you don't realize, Mom and Dad, is the fact that you've not gone to a school board meeting, have you? When was the last time, Mom and Dad, you've gone to a school board meeting where your kid goes to school? And just listen. You can, you can do that. You can sit and you listen.
And you should. It's eye-opening.
I believe you must.
Yes.
And you don't have to say a word. Just watch how it plays out. Your mind will be blown. But Sir Edmund Burke, during the Revolutionary period, said from Parliament, all that evil needs to do to triumph is for good men to do nothing. That's what's happening today. Evil is not, I don't like to give evil credit. I don't believe that evil is smart. Evil is an opportunist. Mm-hmm. If a door is left open, any idiot knows I can walk through it. That's what evil does. Mm-hmm. If the guards are sleeping, evil knows time to attack. If nobody shows up to defend a school board policy, or somebody's introducing, we just had this here locally, where we had conservative school board members introduce a gender protection policy, which was really brilliant, actually. It's compassionate. It was awesome. It protected kids who are not going through this anomaly. Let's remember, it is an anomaly. It
Absolutely.
happens, but it's an anomaly. It's not the norm.
Well, now it's a social contagion.
Well, see, because people didn't speak up, they've made it the norm.
That's right.
And so now people are saying, why is it? In fact, there's great graphs and great data on this, where why now all of a sudden in the last several years, all these kids are now suddenly gender confused and trans and this and they don't know what. And am I a furry? Do I need a cat box in the classroom? Seriously, I'm not joking.
Nope.
Where did this come from? You mentioned a word earlier, which people don't want to hear about. I can tell you right now, they don't want to hear it. They're going to turn it off. And yet I'll set it this way. Do we really believe in the Bible? Do we really believe in God? Don't say yes, because I seriously doubt a lot of people do. Oh yeah, I believe in God and I believe in the Bible. I go to church. That may or may not be a good thing. If I were to say to you what Heidi said a moment ago, she dropped one word that I wonder if you caught it. She said, that's demonic. Well, that's actually two words, isn't it? Demonic. It is demonic. Notice that in the Bible, Satan always goes after children. Mm-hmm. First of all, they're easy to deceive because they're so trusting. They are also a very high value target for the kingdom of woke and evil and sick, because all you have to do is what I hear constantly. Heidi, this is for real. Every school year now that starts, we're coming up on a new school season. Coming up, here's what's going to happen here. Or at the market, someone's going to stop me. Mom's going to start crying, and she's going to say, we're 3 weeks into school, and I sent my daughter into the 7th grade, my daughter. And in 3 weeks, my daughter came home and said she's a boy. And I asked her, where did you get this from? And the teacher said, listen to this. The teacher said, have you ever thought, did it ever enter your mind what it would be like maybe to touch another boy or to touch another girl, you being a girl, touch a girl, you being a boy, touch a boy? Have you ever thought that thought? If you thought the thought, you might be gay.
Yep.
Listen, kids are curious, and every kid goes through sexual development, and their mind and their bodies rarely align until later on in life. Curiosity is normal. That's what parenting is for. Hey, Junior, take off your sister's high heels.
Yeah.
Those are not for you, dude.
Yeah.
Put your dad's boots on if you want to goof off. Guess what that's called? Parenting.
Yep.
Hey, Mom, came home. Turns out my teacher said I might be a girl. Well, guess what? You're not. You're not a girl. You're a boy. Check under the hood. Those are boy parts.
Yep.
Here's the deal. Your teacher doesn't know what they're talking about. They have an agenda. In fact, let's sit down and let's learn a lesson about demonic deception, because we're Christians. Bible said it's going to increase in the last days. And how did you think it was going to arrive? In red tights, underwear with a pitchfork? No. How did Satan come to Eve? Hey, Eve.
Did God really say?
Did God really say? I've got a better. Hey, listen, check this out. And that's what's happening. But parents will say, we're Christians, but we don't get involved.
Yeah.
You're derelict.
Yeah. Well, you and I know, and I hate to keep beating the dead horse, but we've got to see Christians step up to the plate, get off the bench, get onto the battlefield. Pastors have got to, I just think that the church is culpable for so much of this. It breaks my heart. I told you in my run for Congress, I went to 200 churches.
Yeah. How many
Just
allowed you to be
two of them.
acknowledged?
Two.
2 out of 200.
2 out of 200. And so when I had the opportunity, after my run for Congress was over, I spoke for a Republican event not too long ago. And I said, I am sick and tired of hearing pastors who are hiding behind their 501c3s. I said, you want to know what that C stands for? It stands for coward. It stands for coward. And every single one of you.
501
Yes.
C3.
Yeah. If your 501c3 is keeping you from doing what is right, then you better get rid of the 501c3, because God's going to hold you responsible for the lack of stewardship of the platform that He gave you. He gave you that platform. If the church is not at the front of this issue, who will be at the front? The forces of evil will be at the front. This is the time.
That's obvious.
Yes.
So why, I'm playing dumb, I know the answer.
Yeah.
So why would a pastor or a board of a church or denomination be so interested in 501c3 when it's not even in the Bible?
Right. It's money.
Why? Why is it?
It's money.
And
It's
money, and money has a name in the Bible. What's it called?
Evil.
Well, yes, but it's the love of it that causes evil.
Yes.
It's a deity. It's a
Yes.
deity. I remember being in the Vatican on tour, and I saw Mammon. Mammon is an actual god. It's a deity. And we've got pastors who are trying to convince themselves, because the more they say it, the more they feel better
the better
about
it sounds. Sure.
We can't talk about abortion.
Nope.
We can't talk about LBGTQ, LMNOP, whatever.
The alphabet mafia.
The alphabet mafia. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about BLM. We can't talk about this because either a board member or the board has decided or the church government is less than so. And listen, just cut to the chase. You're afraid of losing money, aren't you?
That's it.
And the pastor will, depending upon the church government, the pastor will either be fearful of man, which is a sin, because he's afraid he's going to get fired. If you get fired from a church like that, that's called a promotion.
Yes. Come on.
And then the other thing is this, that if you, as a board, think that you need a IRS tax provision for your church to thrive, you're not a church. Yeah. You're not a New Testament church. You might be a nonprofit organization, but don't call yourself a church. Oh, we preach the gospel. You know what? Maybe you should repent of that. If that's all you preach is the gospel, Why don't you preach the full counsel of God?
Well,
which is everything.
You're touching on something that is so important because, and this was a large part of the reason why I ran for Congress. I know the Lord asked me to do it, but for years and years and years, I've been telling parents, get off the bench, get onto the battlefield. Well, I felt the Lord said, how about you not telling people to do it this time? How about you do it? But I think we are involved. Christians need to be in every sphere of influence. We belong in medicine. We belong in entertainment. We belong in politics. We belong in these discussions. And the church has said for many years, oh no, that's dirty. Church doesn't do politics. And I love what Pastor McCoy said. He said, the church is dirty too. What's your point? Right? Why have we given up our spot in the public square? We gave it up a long time ago, and now we're having a heck of a hard time getting it back again because we removed ourselves from the public discourse, right? We stepped away from it. The church said, what are the two things the church said you don't ever talk about at Thanksgiving dinner? Religion and politics, except for Thanksgiving is all about religion and politics. That's why the holiday exists, and we're not allowed to talk about these things, and we've injured ourselves in the process.
Which is awesome, by the way. Thanksgiving is the only true American holy day.
It is.
We have one holy day
Yep.
in America. Israel's got a bunch. America has one. It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The cohesion, the coming together of faith and politics.
So many churches, so many pastors. If they bothered to respond to my request at all, and all I was saying was, hey, would you let me put a table out in the foyer? Would you introduce me to your Wednesday morning women's Bible study? Would you let me come after church? And more often, I would say 98% of the ones who actually got back to me said, our church does not engage in politics. And I started saying,
that's a lie.
I started saying, yeah, that's what I said.
do.
I said, you actually are. You may think you're not doing politics, but trust me when I say politics is doing you. And this is going to continue to happen until you find your courage again and begin to discover that the Bible has a lot to say about what happens politically. We know that the nation whose God is the Lord is a nation who's blessed, but when we are under wicked leadership, the people groan. Our nation is groaning under wicked leadership right now, and it's infected every part of our country, from the federal government right down to the local municipalities. And I honestly think, and I don't know what you think, because you and I have never talked about this, I'm starting to go, I think that the local governments are actually even more important than the federal government. They're determining our quality of life. They're determining what's happening in our schools. They're determining whether or not you can wear a mask on the bus. The local municipalities matter, and we've disengaged.
I have to tell you, you just announced on that side of the microphone what we have known here for a while, and it's this. You got to remember, although your state's much like our state, we learned this lesson in 2020. No, that's not true. Sorry. We learned this lesson in 2016. In 2016, there was a presidential election, and everybody was cheering, except California went darker. People don't realize that. But then as we began, we're extremely engaged in this. We have been since 1997. We have what is called realimpact.us. It's incredibly powerful. We started looking, and when you looked at, so to speak, the global California politic, it was very discouraging. Then we started looking at, wait a minute, this conservative Republican won this assemblyman post. This woman won her assembly post. She goes to a church so-and-so over down there. And then wait, this mayor is a believer and got elected. We may have lost, so to speak, right, Sacramento, but we saw major victories and we were radically encouraged. And what we learned from that is now a mode of thinking for us. All of it is local to this point.
Yes.
We found it out so powerfully that, watch this. I don't mean to, if I step on some toes, it's not intentionally, it's not mean. But COVID proved it. This is the tale of two churches. One is in LA County, one is in San Bernardino County. LA County, one is one of the, if not the most liberal county. San Bernardino County is considered the most conservative county. These two churches, for decades, One pastor said, never get involved in politics. You don't have to vote because God's sovereign. You don't have to get involved because that's the kingdom of this world. It is dirty. Stay out of it. It's temporal. It's carnal. Nothing good comes of it. Stay out of it, people. Mm-hmm. Another pastor said, even if we lose everything that we fight for, we have to publicly be on record to fight for what's right. You said it earlier. Because there's no place where the church ought not to be.
Yes.
Jesus said, let your light so shine. So even if all is lost, at least you lost this short-term battle, but on the day of judgment, you get awarded.
Amen.
And these pastors had two, they both love God, they both teach the Bible, they have two absolutely different approaches to civic engagement. When COVID hit, that county where that pastor said, don't engage, that county pounced on that church and almost tore it to pieces.
Wow.
Watch this. The pastor was approached by a legal team and said, you need to sue. Watch.
I know where you're going now.
You need to sue.
It's great.
All right, let's sue. When the other pastor heard about that, was puzzled because you don't get involved in that world. Oh, I see. You do get involved in that world. Mm-hmm. When the bad world comes and attacks your flock, you employ the tactics of the world, which I'm not knocking. I'm not saying bad. Mm-hmm. God gave us the laws for righteousness' sake.
That's right.
So I found it a profound contradiction. Stay out of it, stay out of it, stay out of it. Oh, no, what? They're suing us for millions of bucks?
Get into it, get into
it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The other church, for over 30 years, said, hi, what's your name? I'm so-and-so. I'm the mayor. How can we pray for you? Do you have any kids? Can we have their names? City council, what are their names? By the way, we're available for things that you don't want to do. We'll go to doors and say that your husband just perished in a car crash. We'll offer chaplains. You will? Yes. Can you come and do invocations at county meetings and city meetings? Yes. When the sheriff's daughter was kidnapped, he didn't call LA Times. He called me. Mm-hmm. So when COVID hit, our county said, if you get any flack from Newsom, send it straight to us.
Because you have relationship.
Come
on.
Relationship.
Yep.
And in the end, both of those ministries wound up, honestly, proving that you can't parse out and separate where Christ is and isn't.
That's right.
The difference is now, if you want to change the culture around you for righteousness' sake, and you want to put strip clubs out of business and get pot dispensaries either shut down or away, run for city council.
It's true. School board. People need to be running for school boards.
School board's the big one.
You determine what the curriculum is in your school. It's the school board that does it.
School board and PTA.
So the NEA can send it down to the school, but the school board decides whether or not the school will implement it. And so if you had Christians that were running for school board and pastors that were promoting different people, let them come up on your platform for goodness sake. Let them come up and say, this is my name. This is what I want to do. Give them the opportunity to speak the truth to the congregation.
Pastor, listen to this. Pastor, or if you know a pastor, have them watch this part. Did you know, Pastor, it's legal for you, first of all, to speak your heart full-blown on any legislation or propositions in your state, any bills? Did you know that you legally can yell and scream and inform your church about any legislation that's being considered or is going on in your state or in your city? Completely legal. According to IRS laws based upon the Johnson Amendment, Lyndon Johnson, crazy God hater, weirdo, became president, but at the time he was a senator, hated Christians. And he got passed, when he was elected a senator, he got passed the Johnson Amendment, which he tried to muzzle the Christian community from speaking into politics. So number one, the source of us not speaking into the culture is from a guy who didn't want you to speak into the culture. So what we know about the 501c3, I love what Heidi said about the C standing for coward. Your church doesn't need it. I would submit to you that you who claim are not involved in politics are actually involved in politics more than the rest of us. Because you are so obeying that 11th commandment out of total fear. Even your motive's sad. But here's the thing. Every year, you can do what we do, and that is we vet those running for office. We have a vetting machine. I don't mean a machine.
A vetting machine of human beings.
Of human beings who vet candidates. And guess what? Sometimes we have two candidates that are running for the same office, and neither one of them are Christians. Mm-hmm. And we vet them. You know what we do with them? We find out that one of them is pro-life.
It matters.
And so we invite that candidate to church. They always come because they're running for office. Hello, even Hillary Clinton campaigned in churches. And we have them come up and we simply pray for them, their family, and we ask God to heal our nation, to bring us godly leaders, or to bring us leaders who in some way, shape, or form hold to a Judeo-Christian worldview value. Mm-hmm. It just so happens I'm praying for this guy, Joe, who's pro-life. Because your argument is, everybody's corrupt. Yeah, so are you. Here's the thing. Somebody's running for office who holds something close to a worldview that honors God. And you encourage your flock to vote for them. You can do that. So what if we get sued? Come on. I've been trying to get sued for 33 years. Honestly.
I know. I've watched you do it.
We actually send our sermons to the IRS. Why? We're trying to challenge the Johnson Amendment with David Barton and ADF. We're trying to get sued so that you don't ever have to worry about this again. But they won't take us up on it.
Because they know they'll lose.
Gosh, you guys, we had Mike Pompeo here. Ted Cruz during the campaign was going to fly in on the lawn and come and speak, but something happened. We were going to... That's normal. You're going to get sued.
Well, find your courage.
Bring it.
So you think you're going to get sued? Find your courage. How about that? How about be strong and courageous? How about we're not to be afraid of men? How about God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind? And yet for generations, we're watching our churches ruled by the spirit of fear. Yeah. We see this in politics. We saw it in COVID. We see it over and over again. And then we wonder why the blessing of God is not on this nation. And I think, the call to the pastors right now has never been more important than it is right now. We need men of courage behind our pulpits. I have a question for you. I mean, this isn't my podcast. I have one, but this isn't mine. How important is the issue of life when we are choosing a candidate? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the answer. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. How important is the issue of life?
Well, because I cannot separate sacred from secular.
That's right.
Everything to me is sacred, even the secular. Mm-hmm. That if we are going to have our land healed. And that's a big if. Personally, I need more faith in this area. Mm-hmm. If America has ever crossed a Rubicon, we've crossed it. It's in the area of human sacrifice. I'm sad to report along this genre, this week, the state of California ruled human trafficking to be protected.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And heaven weeps.
Sacramento ruled that human trafficking can be protected. Yeah. They can keep doing it. Sanctity of life is the ultimate issue to God. Mm-hmm. If China repented of its abortions, God would bless China. If Vladimir Putin fell on his face and repented before God, because in Russia, abortion is a type of it's just a medical thing. It's like getting your teeth cleaned. Abortion.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
It is the ultimate importance. I'm going to say this publicly, I think, for the first time. Unless God's people repent of allowing abortion, America is literally done. I believe I can argue that America is done. America is over. It's done. Our military is absolutely pathetic. Though I love them, the leadership has lost its mind. Our government, the people who are in law enforcement, let's talk FBI. Let's not.
That's not.
Let's talk CIA. DOJ.
Yeah.
Let's not.
Yeah.
I believe that God has left the building. I do not believe his hand is on America anymore. I believe it's been gone for some time. And you say, Jack, that's a terrible thing to do. How dare you say that as a pastor? Excuse me, I'm supposed to blow the trumpet of warning. America's churches and pastors are not repenting. We're like the Germans. We're singing louder while the train goes down the track carrying Jews to the ovens. And we're not speaking up. We're letting Hitler do whatever he wants. And to prove that I'm hitting on a point, there's people, veins popping out of their neck right now, and they want to fight about this because, frankly, the Holy Spirit just convicted them of their apathy. Pastors hate me because I believe it's salt getting splashed in their eyes, and they hate it. The issue is life. We don't have to talk about taxes. We don't have to talk about, going green. We don't have to talk about cashless society or wearing a mask. The number one issue to God is stop killing my babies.
That's right.
If you stop killing my babies, I'll begin to heal your land.
I may listen to you.
And here's the proof.
Yes.
The proof is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. Read Deuteronomy 28. It sounds like early America. He says, if you do these things, I will bless your crops. You'll feed the world. You won't have to worry about anybody invading you. I'll take care of your enemy. Your wives will become pregnant, and they will bear healthy children. You'll have lots of kids. I'll put the fear of the enemy. I'll put the fear of you into the enemy's hearts, and you will loan. You'll never have to borrow. But if you refuse me, you'll have to borrow money from everybody. Your wives will miscarry. Your population will decline. Your crops will fail. Your children will be taken captive by slave owners. And the wife that you have, she will sleep with another man. And the home that you built will be taken by the bank. Deuteronomy 28. Which one describes America?
Well, here we are.
God has left the nation. The only way he'll come back is if pastors will speak up about life, stop hiding behind the gospel, teach the full counsel of God, which means they have to address life.
Wow.
Heidi, quick, we have to wrap this up. Give people your address. I want them to find you. Where do they need to go? Say it.
Well, you can find me at HeidiSt.John.com. I'm also here at the Real Life Network, so they can find my podcast. The podcast airs 5 days a week. We're coming up on 21 million downloads right now at that show. And I really have a passion to just talk about the intersection of faith and culture. That's what's interesting to me. And I think that's where God's heart is right now, is with children. It's with the country. And I am encouraged. I mean, for as many of the things that we talk about that are discouraging, I mean, people can find me anywhere. Just Google my name. Don't believe everything you read. I ran for Congress. It's ugly. But I want people to be encouraged like you do. We want them to stay engaged, run for office, talk to your pastor. If your pastor is not talking about politics from the pulpit, you need to talk to your pastor and ask him why not. Why not? Politics determines policy, policy shapes the nation.
That's right.
The church needs to be at the front of this conversation and not at the back of this. The church needs to be at the front of the conversation about transgenderism and not at the bottom with a net trying to catch all the children that are being injured. Why can't we be at the top before they're injured instead of at the bottom after they're injured? And I hope and I pray, and I know that you do too, that there will be an awakening of God's people. Judgment really does begin in the house of God. It starts with God's people. Are we going to be the men and women of courage that God calls us to be, or will we be ruled by the spirit of fear? The next several years are going to tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, in wrapping this up, book of Jeremiah chapter 29 tells us that we are commanded by God to seek the welfare of the city where I have planted you for your good and for the city's good.
Powerful.
How do you escape that? You cannot.
Well, and you said last night, is it the last chapter of Revelation?
Yes.
In the very first thing of the list of things that God says,
People who inherit hell.
That's right. Cowardice at the top of the list.
The first person on the list in the book of Revelation that inherits hell
Is a coward.
the coward.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. It's powerful.
Wow, it's powerful. You leave us right now, and you head up the road to go to PragerU.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a series of videos for them, how not to be a leftist, how not to raise a leftist, actually. I'll be doing that, and then I'll be headed over to Chia. So that's
California
another,
Homeschool.
there is an organization that needs to
it.
get a shout out. So the California Home Educators Association been working here in the state of California to secure homeschool freedoms for generations.
Yes.
And they are doing incredible work. And if you're interested in homeschooling and you're in California, you need to be a member of CHIA.
That's right.
So important. I think CHIA, who works hand in hand really with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and these people are the reason that you still have homeschool liberty here in California.
Right.
And so membership is really important there. I think we take our freedoms for granted. And if we've learned anything in COVID, it's that we shouldn't take those freedoms for granted. CHIA is at the front of this thing. So I'm the opening keynote there this Friday morning, and then I'll be the closer on Saturday night. And so I love the state of California. God's doing good things here. There are good people here. And I hear it, I'm sure you do too, because we live on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I wish California and Oregon and Washington just drop off into the ocean. I'm like, no, God loves the people here. There are good people here. And the light shines bright here.
Our friend Frank Turek pointed something out to me that just stumped me and made me laugh and then cry all at once. Frank Turek said, do you know what state in the United States has the most registered Republicans?
Could it be California?
It's California.
Yeah. Why didn't that surprise me?
The problem is there's more registered Democrats in the state of California than Republicans. There's more conservative people if a Republican is going to be conservative.
Well, and if we would just get up and do
Get
the
up
thing.
and vote. Get up and get involved. Yeah, absolutely. Do the Bible. Stop talking about it.
Yeah, come on.
Do it. So you guys, listen, thank you. This has been an amazing time. Heidi is a hero of ours. We love her and her family. Her husband, Jay, incredible. Excuses evaporate when you hear or think about Heidi St. John, because she has not one, she has not five, she has 7 kids. If that's not enough, ran for Congress. If that's not enough, she's an author. You have your 8th or 9th? 8th?
I don't know. I lost count.
8th or 9th book coming out. Tyndale, look for it. Just the titles of her books alone sell. Just the title sells. You're going to want to read. You're going to want get on her podcast, subscribe, get involved, find out what's going on. And listen, we're praying that way down here in SoCal and way up there in Washington State and all the distance in between, God winds up capturing Washington, Oregon, and California, and there's a spiritual revival among the church, and that changes the culture, and it pushes the mess, the garbage, all the way to the East Coast and into the Atlantic. God can do it if we're willing. So listen, as always, it's time for you and I to live out our faith. It's time for real life. God bless you guys for being with us today.
This Jack Hibbs podcast, as well as all the broadcast outreach opportunities, are listener supported. Will you consider partnering with us through a special gift? Go to jackhibbs.com to learn more and stay connected.